My husband betrayed me with my best friend on my birthday, and when he crawled back weeks later, a darker game had just begun. I always wondered why my best friend insisted on planning my birthday party. Now, watching my husband kiss my best friend in front of our closest friends and family, everything made perfect sense. Isabella, my supposed best friend of 15 years, had orchestrated the perfect stage for my humiliation. The crystal champagne flute trembled in my hand as Sebastian, my husband of 12 years, cleared his throat for what I thought would be his annual birthday toast to me. The private dining room of LeBlanc, my favorite restaurant, was filled with intimate lighting and familiar faces, all carefully selected by Isabella, no doubt. "Before we celebrate another year of my beautiful wife's life," Sebastian began, his voice carrying an unfamiliar edge that made my spine tingle, "I need to share something important." He paused, his eyes not meeting mine but drifting to Isabella, who stood near the vintage wine cabinet, her red lips curved in what I now recognized as anticipation rather than friendship. The room held its breath. I felt my mother's hand squeeze my shoulder from behind, her instincts probably already sensing what I refused to acknowledge. The sterling silver fork I'd been fidgeting with clattered against fine china, the sound sharp in the suspended silence. "Emma," Sebastian continued, addressing me as if we were alone and not surrounded by 30 of our closest friends and family members. "You've been an incredible part of my life, but sometimes love finds us in unexpected places." His words hung in the air like poison gas, slowly suffocating every happy memory we'd built together. Isabella stepped forward then, her emerald dress, the one I'd helped her choose last month, catching the light as she moved to stand beside him. The pieces clicked into place, her insistence on planning this party, the secret phone calls that ended when I entered the room, the knowing looks exchanged at dinner parties. "Sebastian and I have fallen in love," Isabella announced, her voice carrying the same tone she used when sharing recipes or gossip over our weekly coffee dates. "We never meant for this to happen, but the heart wants what it wants." Someone gasped, probably my sister Claire, always the dramatic one. But it was the scattered, nervous laughter that followed that truly cut deep. These people, our people, were actually finding humor in this moment. I caught glimpses of uncomfortable smiles, witnessed the awkward raising of glasses as Sebastian continued speaking about new beginnings and following your heart. My father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "How dare you," he started, but I raised my hand, silencing him. This was my moment, my humiliation, my story to control. I stood slowly, smoothing the black cocktail dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion. "Well," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I suppose this explains the mysterious weekend business trips and the new cologne." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. "And Isabella, darling, it certainly explains why you insisted I wear black tonight. How thoughtful of you to dress me for my own funeral." Sebastian had the audacity to look uncomfortable. "Emma, we didn't want to hurt you." "No," I interrupted, taking a deliberate sip of champagne. "Then perhaps you shouldn't have chosen my 40th birthday party for this charming announcement." But then again, I turned to Isabella. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic, didn't you?" I set my glass down with precise control, though every nerve in my body screamed for me to throw it. The diamond tennis bracelet Sebastian had given me for our 10th anniversary caught the light as I moved, and with deliberate care I unclasped it and let it fall onto the pristine white tablecloth. "You'll regret this," I said softly, but with absolute conviction. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. The slight falter in Isabella's smile, the momentary uncertainty that flickered across Sebastian's face, told me they caught my meaning. "Emma!" Isabella stepped forward, reaching out as if to touch my arm. I stepped back, my movement so smooth it made her gesture appear clumsy. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate," I addressed the room, my voice carrying the warmth of a winter storm. "Please, enjoy the cake Isabella spent hours choosing. It would be a shame to let all her careful planning go to waste." As I walked out of LeBlanc that night, head high and steps measured, I heard the murmur of conversations explode behind me. Let them talk. Let them speculate. They had no idea what was coming, because while Sebastian and Isabella had spent months planning their grand revelation, they'd forgotten one crucial detail about me. I'd always been better at playing the long game. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped onto the sidewalk, and I finally allowed myself a real smile. They thought this was the end of my story. They were wrong. This was just the beginning. The morning after my birthday catastrophe, I vanished. Not physically, of course, but socially. I became a ghost. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from concerned friends and family, each notification a reminder of the spectators to my humiliation. I let them all go unanswered. Instead of drowning in tears or wine, I channeled my rage into research. My laptop became my closest confidant as I dove deep into Sebastian's business dealings. As a corporate lawyer, I knew exactly where to look for the threads that would unravel his carefully constructed world. 12 years of marriage had given me intimate knowledge of his weaknesses, his secrets, and, most importantly, his lies. Isabella's social media presence suddenly became fascinating reading material. Every perfectly curated post, every tagged location, every business connection, I cataloged them all. Her real estate empire, built on carefully cultivated relationships and a reputation for discretion, was her pride. How fitting that pride would be her downfall. I rented a modest apartment across town using my mother's maiden name. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now living in a space smaller than my walk-in closet at home, but this wasn't about comfort, it was about strategy. In this anonymous space, I could think clearly, plan meticulously, without the ghost of my married life haunting every corner. "Emma, please," my sister Claire begged during her third attempt to visit. "You need support right now." I simply smiled and closed the door. Support wasn't what I needed. I needed focus. The concerned looks and sympathetic platitudes would only slow me down. By day, I maintained my position at the law firm, my professional mask never slipping. My colleagues walked on eggshells around me, but I gave them nothing to gossip about. No emotional outbursts, no dramatic confrontations, just calculated competence and an enigmatic smile that made them more uncomfortable than tears ever would. Late at night, I built my network, anonymous email accounts, secure messaging apps, and careful documentation of every piece of information I gathered. Sebastian's business partners became unwitting allies as I posed as a potential investor, each conversation revealing new cracks in his corporate facade. Isabella's clients were surprisingly chatty when approached by someone interested in her unique business methods. The whispers of cut corners, undisclosed property issues, and creative accounting practices painted an interesting picture. Every revelation was carefully filed away, each piece fitting into my larger puzzle. I watched from afar as they flaunted their relationship, now free from secrecy. Sebastian moved into Isabella's penthouse, the one she'd bought suspiciously quickly after her divorce 3 years ago. They attended charity balls together, their photos splashed across local society pages. Each public appearance added another layer to my understanding of their routines, their vulnerabilities. The restraint required was excruciating. When I overheard my assistant mentioning that Isabella had been spotted ring shopping, I maintained my composure, even as my nails dug crescents into my palms. When Sebastian's family law firm won a major case and he was photographed celebrating with Isabella at his side, I simply added the newspaper clipping to my growing collection. My father, ever the protective patriarch, tried to intervene. "Sweetheart, your mother and I are worried. You can't just disappear like this." But I could, and I had. The woman they knew, the perfect wife, the loyal friend, the predictable daughter, had died at that birthday party. In her place was someone far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. 1 month into my self-imposed exile, I received an invitation to a mutual friend's dinner party. Sebastian and Isabella would be there, celebrating their new life. I declined with a polite note about prior commitments. Let them think I was hiding in shame. Let them believe their betrayal had broken me. In reality, I was meeting with a former client of Isabella's, one whose luxury development project had mysteriously fallen through after her expert guidance. His story, combined with others I'd collected, was forming a pattern that any investigative journalist would find fascinating. The fact that this particular journalist had a grudge against Sebastian's firm was just an added bonus. As I sat in my sparse apartment that evening, surrounded by documents and digital trails, I felt a strange sense of peace. The initial shock of betrayal had crystallized into something harder, something colder. Every unanswered call, every declined invitation, every moment of silence was building anticipation for what was to come. They thought my silence meant acceptance. They assumed my disappearance meant defeat. But they'd forgotten the most important lesson about silence. It's not the thunder that kills you, it's the lightning you never see coming. I picked up my phone and finally answered one of the countless messages. A simple response to an old law school friend, now working for the Securities and Exchange Commission. "Yes, I'd love to have coffee and catch up. I have some interesting insights about local real estate developments I'd like to share." The pieces were in place. The stage was set. Now it was time to remind them why they should have feared my silence. The coffee meeting with my SEC contact was just the beginning. Within weeks, Sebastian's law firm became the subject of a routine audit. Watching him scramble to explain questionable transactions and creative bookkeeping brought a satisfaction I hadn't anticipated. Each morning brought new fires for him to extinguish, each one strategically lit by information I'd carefully leaked. Isabella's real estate empire began crumbling with surgical precision. Anonymous tips to building inspectors revealed numerous code violations in her prestigious properties. Suddenly, her luxury developments were making headlines for all the wrong reasons. The whispers I'd cultivated about her questionable business practices grew into roars. I orchestrated their downfall like a symphony, each movement perfectly timed. While Sebastian was distracted by the SEC investigation, I made sure his biggest clients learned about his oversight in their recent contracts. It's amazing how quickly loyalty evaporates when millions are at stake. The prestigious corner office he'd bragged about for years now felt more like a glass cage. "Did you hear about Isabella Monroe's latest project?" The whispers at charity events grew louder. Apparently, the foundation is unstable. The investors are furious. I sat at my own table at these events now, watching the society vultures circle their new prey. The irony wasn't lost on me that the same people who'd laughed at my humiliation were now eagerly participating in theirs. Sebastian's first major blow came when his firm's managing partners called an emergency meeting. I didn't need to be there to know what happened. My carefully planted evidence of his ethical breaches had found its way to exactly the right eyes. His name was removed from the firm's letterhead that same day. Isabella's breakdown was more public. During the grand opening of her latest luxury development, a group of angry previous clients staged a protest. The sight of her mascara streaming down her face as she tried to explain away their accusations made every society page. The same photographers who'd once captured her triumphant smile now documented her disgrace. "Emma," my sister Claire called one evening, her voice urgent. "Sebastian looks terrible. He's losing weight, and Isabella, well, she's drinking a lot. What did you do?" "Do?" I replied innocently. "I've been focused on healing, Claire. Ask their consciences what they did." The dominoes continued to fall. Sebastian's younger brother, a junior partner at the firm, was forced to distance himself publicly. Their parents, who'd once welcomed Isabella as Sebastian's true love, now crossed the street to avoid her. The isolation they'd intended for me became their reality instead. My masterstroke came in the form of an exposé in the city's most respected business journal. Every questionable deal, every ethical breach, every betrayal of client trust laid bare for all to see. The article didn't mention me once, but those who knew us recognized my fingerprints all over it. Isabella's real estate license suspension hearing was scheduled for the same day Sebastian faced the State Bar Association. A coincidence, of course. I attended neither, but I did enjoy a leisurely lunch at their favorite restaurant, alone at what used to be their regular table. The crash of their professional lives coincided perfectly with the implosion of their personal relationship. Stress has a way of revealing true colors, and theirs were particularly ugly. Their public arguments became legendary, the perfect couple now perfectly miserable. "You promised you had everything under control," Isabella's voice carried across the restaurant one evening when they didn't know I was seated just around the corner. "Now I'm losing everything because of you." "Me?" Sebastian's laugh was bitter. "You're the one who insisted we go public at her birthday." "It'll be dramatic," you said. "She'll just have to accept it," you said. "Well, how's that working out for us?" I sipped my wine and smiled. They'd orchestrated my humiliation in this very restaurant. Now they couldn't even enjoy a meal here without falling apart. Poetic justice has always been my favorite kind. The final nail in their coffin came from an unexpected source. Isabella's former assistant, armed with years of documented evidence, filed a wrongful termination lawsuit. The details that emerged painted a picture of corruption that even their remaining supporters couldn't ignore. Sebastian's attempt to salvage his career through a television interview backfired spectacularly. His practiced charm came across as smug insincerity, and his explanations sounded like excuses. The comment section was particularly brutal. Society loves nothing more than watching the mighty fall. As I watched their carefully constructed world crumble, I felt neither joy nor sadness. Instead, there was a sense of balance restored. They tried to write me out of their story, but instead, I'd become the author of their downfall. The last time I saw them together, they were arguing on the street outside their former favorite cafe. Isabella's designer clothes now looked shabby, and Sebastian's confident stride had become a defeated shuffle. They didn't notice me watching from my car, but I noticed everything. The way they couldn't even look at each other, the distance between them that seemed to grow with each passing second. My phone buzzed with a text from my realtor. Their penthouse was officially on the market, listed well below value. They needed a quick sale, apparently. I smiled and made a mental note to have my attorney submit an offer. After all, I'd always liked that view. After watching their public meltdown, I knew it was time to focus solely on Isabella. Sebastian's professional ruin was complete, but Isabella still clung to fragments of her social standing. That was about to change. I'd saved my most devastating ammunition specifically for her. The encrypted folder on my laptop contained years of her indiscretions, carefully documented and timestamped. Every betrayal, not just of me, but of countless others. Isabella had made a career of climbing social ladders by stepping on fingers. The first revelation came through her charity foundation. Anonymous tips led investigators to discover that only a fraction of the donations actually reached their intended causes. The society matrons who championed her philanthropic image recoiled in horror as their names became associated with her fraud. "Did you know?" Mrs. Blackwood, the foundation's biggest donor, cornered me at a gallery opening. "All those years, did you suspect what she was doing with our donations?" I merely sipped my champagne and replied, "Isabella always did have expensive tastes." The implications spread through the room like wildfire. Her past came back to haunt her in waves. Former clients emerged with stories of dubious property deals. Old friends suddenly remembered occasions when jewelry went missing after her visits. Each revelation was timed perfectly, just as she thought she might recover from the last. The scandal about her first marriage hit the local papers next. Her ex-husband's suspicious accident, the conveniently timed insurance payout, the rushed divorce settlement, all carefully researched details that raised uncomfortable questions. The police didn't reopen the case, but the court of public opinion needed no formal charges. Isabella's desperate attempts to maintain her image became increasingly pathetic. She hosted a charity gala at her remaining property, but hardly anyone attended. Those who did came only to whisper behind their hands and document her fall from grace on their social media accounts. "Please," she cornered me in the ladies' room of an upscale restaurant, her designer outfit now looking like a costume rather than couture. "I know it's you behind all this. What do you want? Money? An apology?" I adjusted my lipstick in the mirror, taking my time before responding. "What, Isabella, darling? I already have everything I want. I'm just making sure you get everything you deserve." Her social isolation became complete when the Junior League, her pride and joy, voted to revoke her membership. The same women who'd once competed for her attention now pretended they'd never known her. Each invitation rescinded, every door closed, was another small victory. The final blow came from an unexpected source, her own mother. At a prominent social event, the elderly Mrs. Monroe publicly denounced her daughter's actions, tearfully apologizing to everyone her daughter had wronged. The video went viral in our social circle, effectively ending any chance of Isabella's redemption. I watched from a carefully maintained distance as she spiraled. Her polished appearance began to crack, literally. Without access to her usual resources, her expensive maintenance routine faltered. The gray roots and aging designer clothes told their own story of decline. Her desperation peaked at a mutual friend's wedding, where she'd managed to retain an invitation through old connections. After too many glasses of champagne, she caused a scene, accusing various guests of abandoning her. Security escorted her out as she sobbed about loyalty and friendship, words that tasted like ashes in her mouth. Sebastian, already dealing with his own professional exile, finally cut all ties. Their love story, which had cost me my marriage, ended not with passion but with paperwork. He filed a restraining order after she showed up at his new modest apartment, creating yet another public spectacle. "You've destroyed me," she texted one night, her message riddled with typing errors. "Are you happy now?" I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer, adding it to the documentation of her increasingly erratic behavior. Every desperate attempt to contact me only strengthened my position. The society columns that had once featured her charity work and business success now ran stories about her decline. Local socialites' shocking fall from grace became former realty star faces multiple fraud investigations. The trajectory was as swift as it was merciless. Her final public appearance was almost anticlimactic. At a small cafe where we'd once shared weekly brunches, she sat alone, her designer handbag now obviously counterfeit, her manicure chipped, staring into a cold coffee she couldn't afford to replace. Our eyes met briefly as I walked past with my new circle of friends, but I didn't acknowledge her. She'd become what she'd always feared most, invisible. That evening, as I sat in my newly purchased penthouse, her former home, I received a call from my sister. "Emma, don't you think this is enough? She's lost everything." I watched the sunset from the same windows where Isabella had once planned my humiliation. "No, Claire," I replied calmly. "She just lost what everyone could see. There's still so much more to take." The call ended with my sister's worried sigh, but I felt no remorse. After all, Isabella had taught me an invaluable lesson about friendship. Some things are better destroyed completely. News of Isabella's complete social exile spread through our circles like a virus, infecting every relationship she and Sebastian had ever cultivated. Former friends were forced to choose sides, and self-preservation made their choice simple. The couple who had once been the toast of society now couldn't even get a decent restaurant reservation. My sister Claire's initial sympathy for them began to waver as more details emerged. "I can't believe the foundation money," she confessed over dinner at my new penthouse. "All those children's programs, how could she?" I simply nodded, letting the weight of each revelation do its work. The beauty of truth is that once it starts flowing, it creates its own momentum. Sebastian's family, particularly his younger brother Marcus, faced their own social crucible. At a charity board meeting, I watched Marcus squirm as questions about his knowledge of his brother's ethical breaches arose. His stammered denials cost him his position, though I hadn't even planned that particular domino. The ripple effect touched every corner of our shared world. The country club where Sebastian and I had spent countless weekends quietly revoked his membership. Isabella's prized position on 3 charitable boards vanished overnight. Even their favorite restaurants suddenly couldn't find their reservations. "You have to admire the thoroughness," remarked David, my new colleague at the firm that had eagerly hired me after Sebastian's disgrace. "It's like watching a master class in social demolition." I smiled behind my wine glass, appreciating the irony that my professional reputation had actually improved through this ordeal. Their fame suffered collateral damage that even I hadn't anticipated. Sebastian's parents, once pillars of the community, found their own social invitations dwindling. His mother's bridge club suddenly had no openings, his father's golf partners developed scheduling conflicts. The taint of association proved surprisingly contagious. Isabella's younger sister, who had always lived in her shadow, seized the opportunity to distance herself completely. At a charity gala, I overheard her loudly proclaiming, "I always knew something wasn't right with her. The way she treated Emma. Disgusting." The performance was a bit heavy-handed, but I appreciated the sentiment. The professional community's reaction was particularly fascinating. Law firms that had once courted Sebastian now warned their associates against any contact. Real estate agents who had fawned over Isabella's listings now refused to return her calls. Their names became cautionary tales in boardroom discussions. Even their domestic staff jumped ship. Their former housekeeper, Maria, now worked for me, bringing with her an intimate knowledge of their habits and vulnerabilities. "Miss Emma," she confided one morning, "they were planning this for months. The separate phone calls, the secret meetings. I should have told you." "It's fine, Maria," I assured her, savoring my morning coffee from what used to be Isabella's favorite bone china set. Everything worked out exactly as it should. The most delicious consequence was watching their former enablers scramble to prove their loyalty to me. People who had laughed at my humiliation now fell over themselves to share stories of Sebastian and Isabella's misdeeds. Each revelation was carefully noted and filed away. Ammunition for future use. Their favorite vacation spots became off limits. The manager of the Bellevue Resort, where they probably first consummated their betrayal, personally called to assure me they'd never be welcome again. I booked the presidential suite for Christmas, just because I could. Sebastian's elderly aunt, the family matriarch who had once declared Isabella a perfect match for her nephew, now referred to them as those people in hushed, disapproving tones at her annual garden party. Their names were notably absent from the family photographs displayed on antique easels. The local press, sensing the shift in social winds, began excavating old stories. Journalists who had once written glowing profiles of the power couple now penned subtle hit pieces. The fall of society's golden pair ran as a 3-part series, each installment more devastating than the last. Their joint Christmas card list, which Isabella had once bragged contained over 300 names, dwindled to desperate digital messages that went largely unopened. Holiday parties that they had once dominated now flourished in their absence, their names conspicuously missing from every guest list. I watched it all from my new position of power, orchestrating some moves, merely appreciating others. The social avalanche I'd triggered had developed its own momentum, burying them deeper than I could have managed alone. Their desperate attempts to maintain connections only highlighted their isolation. December's chill couldn't penetrate the warmth radiating through my penthouse as I prepared for the holiday soiree that would mark my complete social resurrection. Every detail had been orchestrated with the same precision I'd applied to Sebastian and Isabella's downfall, from the imported orchids adorning each table to the vintage champagne that sparkled like liquid gold under the crystal chandeliers. The guest list read like a who's who of our city's elite, each name carefully selected for maximum impact. These were the same faces that had witnessed my public humiliation months ago, yet now they competed for my attention, eager to bask in the glow of my newfound power. The evening unfolded like a perfectly choreographed ballet. Conversations flowed around me, punctuated by genuine laughter and the subtle clink of crystal glasses. I moved through my guests with practiced grace, accepting compliments on the penthouse's transformation, fielding business inquiries, and graciously acknowledging the holiday gifts that arrived with increasing frequency. The absence of two particular names from the evening's festivities hung in the air like an unspoken truth. Everyone knew who wasn't there, and everyone understood why. Claire found me during a quiet moment when the crowd had naturally dispersed across the expansive living areas. We stood together before those magnificent floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling endlessly below us like a glittering tapestry of possibility. The view commanded respect, demanded attention, much like the woman I'd become. "You know," Claire said softly, her wineglass catching the reflection of the party lights. "You've changed in ways I never expected. Sometimes when I look at you now, I feel like I'm meeting someone entirely new." I turned from the mesmerizing cityscape to study my sister's face, noting the mixture of admiration and uncertainty in her expression. The observation didn't surprise me. I'd felt the transformation myself, had watched it evolve through each calculated move, each strategic victory. Have I really changed, though? I mused, my voice carrying the confidence that had become second nature. Or have I simply shed the layers of pretense that kept the real me hidden? Sebastian and Isabella didn't create this version of me, Claire. They merely provided the catalyst for her emergence. What you see now, this strength, this clarity, this refusal to accept anything less than what I deserve, this was always here, waiting beneath the surface of the dutiful wife and loyal friend. The party continued around us, vibrant and alive, while somewhere in the city, two people who had once thought themselves invincible faced another evening alone with their regrets. As January's bitter wind howled outside my penthouse windows, my carefully orchestrated plans reached their crescendo. Sebastian's last-ditch attempt to salvage his legal career through a small private practice had imploded spectacularly. His final client, a desperate real estate developer, discovered some anonymous documentation about Sebastian's past ethical breaches, just hours before signing a major contract. Isabella's situation proved even more catastrophic. The SEC investigation into her real estate dealings had expanded to include tax evasion and fraud. Her remaining assets were frozen, leaving her to face the harsh reality of winter without her beloved luxury car or access to her investment accounts. Their relationship, once flaunted as an epic romance worth destroying my marriage for, deteriorated into public screaming matches outside what used to be their favorite bistro. Isabella's shrill accusations about Sebastian's cowardice and incompetence drew a crowd of smartphone-wielding observers. The video went viral in our social circles within hours. "He promised he'd protect me." Isabella's mascara-streaked face filled countless screens. "He said we'd handle everything together, but look at us now." Sebastian's response, a cold "you're on your own," became the caption for countless social media posts. The financial empire they'd both taken for granted crumbled like a house of cards in a hurricane. Sebastian's investment portfolio, heavily leveraged and poorly managed in recent months, collapsed under the weight of margin calls. Isabella's property holdings, already tainted by scandal, became toxic assets that no one would touch. Their desperate attempts to salvage something, anything, led to even more catastrophic decisions. Sebastian's ill-advised interview with a local business journal turned into a confessional that implicated Isabella in several questionable deals. She retaliated by releasing emails that exposed his role in defrauding his former firm's clients. "Did you see?" Claire texted me one morning. "They're selling everything. Even Isabella's engagement ring is listed online." I smiled, remembering how she'd flashed that gaudy diamond in my face at my birthday party. Now it was just another asset to be liquidated. The perfect storm I'd engineered swept away not just their wealth and status, but their very sense of identity. Sebastian, once the epitome of legal success, couldn't even secure a position teaching law at a community college. Isabella, the social butterfly who'd prided herself on her networking skills, found herself blocked on every social media platform that mattered. Their final joint appearance at a court-mandated mediation session painted a picture of complete devastation. Sebastian's custom suits had been replaced by off-the-rack wear that didn't quite fit. Isabella's designer wardrobe had given way to last season's bargain finds. They sat at opposite ends of the conference table, unable to look at each other. "You ruined everything," Isabella spat, her perfectly maintained facade finally cracking. "If you hadn't insisted on that stupid public announcement." "Me?" Sebastian's laugh was hollow. "You're the one who wanted to humiliate her. Let's do it at her birthday party, you said." "It'll be perfect, you said." "Well, how perfect does it feel now?" The mediator's report, which somehow found its way to my inbox, detailed their complete financial dissolution. Every joint asset, every shared investment, every remnant of their affair had to be sold to satisfy creditors and legal judgments. The mighty had not just fallen, they'd crashed and burned. Isabella's final attempt to resurrect her social standing through a tell-all blog post backfired spectacularly. Her version of events, meant to paint herself as a victim of circumstance and Sebastian's manipulation, instead revealed even more damaging details about their misconduct. The comments section became a battlefield of former friends and associates sharing their own stories of betrayal. Sebastian, facing disbarment and financial ruin, retreated to a studio apartment in a part of town he would have never deigned to visit in his previous life. His luxury watches, sports car, and even his prized golf club membership were sacrificed to keep the electricity on and food in his refrigerator. The storm reached its peak when their former social circle gathered for the annual charity gala, an event they had once dominated. Their absence was marked not by whispers of sympathy, but by casual discussions of their downfall, as if discussing last season's fashion trends. They had become cautionary tales, their names synonymous with hubris and betrayal. I attended that gala, wearing the diamond tennis bracelet I'd let fall onto the tablecloth at my birthday party, retrieved, cleaned, and now a symbol of my triumph. The same people who had witnessed my humiliation now vied for my attention, eager to distance themselves from any association with the fallen couple. That evening, as I sipped champagne and accepted condolences that sounded more like congratulations, my phone buzzed with a notification. Sebastian had been seen moving his remaining possessions into a motel on the outskirts of town. Isabella, according to reliable sources, had been reduced to asking former friends for temporary accommodation. The perfect storm had done its work, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. And I, standing in the eye of the hurricane I had created, felt nothing but the calm satisfaction of a job well done. They had tried to write me out of their story, but instead, I had become the author of their destruction. The knock on my penthouse door came at precisely 11:47 p.m., exactly 1 month after the charity gala. Through the security feed, I watched Sebastian shift nervously in the hallway, his designer stubble now a ragged beard, his once immaculate appearance reduced to wrinkled department store clothes. I let him wait for exactly 5 minutes, 1 minute for each year he and Isabella had been secretly seeing each other behind my back. When I finally opened the door, the man before me barely resembled the confident attorney who had humiliated me at my own birthday party. "Emma," he croaked, his voice hoarse. "Please, I need to talk to you." I leaned against the doorframe, taking in every detail of his deterioration, the dark circles under his eyes, the trembling hands, the scuffed shoes. Each imperfection was a small victory. "Well, this is unexpected," I said coolly. "Shouldn't you be comforting Isabella? I heard she's been having quite a difficult time finding housing." "Isabella's gone," he said, his words tumbling out. "She left the country yesterday, to Dubai, I think. Some distant cousin offered her a fresh start." He laughed bitterly. "She didn't even say goodbye." "How tragic," I replied, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Love's young dream ended so soon. Please, do come in. I believe you know where everything is. You did help pick out most of the furniture." He followed me into what used to be his living room, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. The space had been completely redecorated, every trace of their former life together erased. Only the view remained the same, the glittering city lights that had witnessed so many of their secret rendezvous. "I know it was you," he said suddenly, sinking into a leather armchair. "All of it, the SEC investigation, the leaked documents, the social isolation. You orchestrated everything." I poured myself a glass of wine, the same vintage we'd served at our wedding. "Did you really come here just to state the obvious, Sebastian? That's not very lawyer-like of you." "I'm not a lawyer anymore," he whispered, the words seeming to physically pain him. "Thanks to you, I'm nothing. No career, no money, no future. Even Isabella." He trailed off, running his hands through his unkempt hair. "Yes, Isabella, I savored her name like a fine dessert. Your true love, the woman worth destroying our marriage for. Tell me, was it worth it? Those stolen moments, those secret meetings, that grand romantic gesture at my birthday party, did they fulfill all your dreams?" His composure cracked. "You've ruined us both. Isn't that enough? What more do you want?" I set my wineglass down with deliberate care. "What? Oh, Sebastian, you still don't understand. This was never about want. This was about deserve. You and Isabella needed to learn that actions have consequences. Consider it a lesson in karma. We made a mistake," he pleaded, tears forming in his eyes. "We never meant to hurt you like this. We fell in love." The laugh that escaped me was genuine. "Love? Oh, darling, what you and Isabella had was convenience wrapped in lust, sprinkled with the thrill of betrayal. Real love doesn't need an audience for its declarations. Real love doesn't humiliate its obstacles." He stood suddenly, anger briefly overcoming his desperation. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Our suffering, our destruction. It's all just entertainment for you." "Entertainment?" I moved closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. "No, Sebastian, this is justice. You and Isabella chose to make a spectacle of my humiliation. I simply returned the favor on a grander scale." "I'm sorry," he choked out, falling back into the chair. "God, Emma, I'm so sorry. Please, there must be something I can do. Something to make this right." I studied him for a long moment, taking in the complete picture of his breakdown, the mighty Sebastian reduced to begging in what used to be his own home. "There is nothing you can do," I said finally. "Nothing you can say. This is exactly what I promised you that night, regret. Pure, complete, consuming regret. Emma, please." "Goodbye, Sebastian," I cut him off, moving to the door. "I trust you can find your way out. After all, you were always so good at exits." As the door closed behind his slumped figure, I returned to my wine and the city lights. Somewhere in Dubai, Isabella was probably discovering that her cousin's offer of help came with strings attached, strings I had carefully arranged. And here was Sebastian, broken and alone, finally understanding the true Etalfa system, cost of their betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Is it done? Are you finally satisfied? I smiled, typing my response. Almost. There's just one more scene left to play. Because while Sebastian's breakdown might signal the end for him, it was just another step in my carefully choreographed dance of revenge. After all, some lessons need to be absolutely unforgettable. After Sebastian's late-night breakdown, I found myself standing in my penthouse, staring at the chair where he had sat. The victory I had orchestrated was complete. Sebastian broken, Isabella exiled, their love story transformed into a cautionary tale. Yet, something unexpected lingered in the air, an emotion I hadn't planned for. My phone lit up with a message from my private investigator in Dubai. Isabella's fresh start had evolved exactly as I'd arranged. Her cousin's offer of help came with strings attached, specifically a position as a glorified secretary in his company, a far cry from her former real estate empire. The photos showed her in modest clothing, head bowed, sorting mail in a cramped office. I poured another glass of wine and settled onto my balcony, the same spot where Sebastian and Isabella had probably plotted my humiliation. The city sprawled before me, indifferent to the drama that had unfolded in its midst. A year had passed since my birthday party. A year of calculated moves and precise strikes, each one designed to dismantle their lives piece by piece. Claire visited the next morning, concern etched on her face. I saw Sebastian yesterday, she said, accepting the coffee I offered. He was working as a paralegal at some strip mall law office. He looked destroyed. Isn't that what you wanted? I mused. More to myself than to her, is it? She studied me carefully. You've won, Emma. They've lost everything. But looking at you now, I have to ask, what have you gained? The question caught me off guard. What had I gained? Professional success, certainly. Social status, undeniably. The penthouse, their former friends, their possessions, all mine now. Yet, sitting there with my sister, I felt a strange emptiness where satisfaction should have been. That evening, I discovered an old photo album while reorganizing my closet. Pictures of Sebastian and me in happier times, of Isabella and me as genuine friends before the betrayal, before the revenge, before everything changed. I traced our smiling faces, remembering the trust I'd once felt, the love I'd believed in. Was it worth it? My father asked during our weekly dinner. I thought about Sebastian's tears, about Isabella's exile, about the perfect execution of my revenge. They deserved everything they got, I replied, but the words tasted different now. Later that week, I received a letter from Isabella, postmarked Dubai. Her once elegant handwriting was shaky, the paper tear-stained. She wrote of regret, of loneliness, of understanding too late the true cost of betrayal. I should have felt triumphant reading her words, but I felt tired. Sebastian's final attempt at contact came through a mutual friend. He'd started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping people who couldn't afford representation. He's trying to find redemption, our friend said. He talks about you sometimes, about how you taught him the hardest lesson of his life. I spent a long night on my balcony, reflecting on the past year, the meticulous planning, the careful execution, the sweet taste of revenge. It had consumed me completely. I'd become a master orchestrator of destruction, but at what cost to myself? Claire found me there the next morning, still in my thoughts. You know what's ironic? She said, joining me at the railing. In destroying them, you've transformed yourself. The question is, do you like who you've become? The truth hit me with unexpected force. In executing my perfect revenge, I'd changed fundamentally. The woman who had stood humiliated at her birthday party was gone, replaced by someone harder, colder, more powerful, but also someone who had spent a year focused solely on destruction rather than creation. I picked up my phone, looking at the last text I'd received from Sebastian. I hope someday you'll find peace. I know now that I destroyed something beautiful, not just in our marriage, but in you. The sun rose over the city, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. My revenge was complete, perfect in its execution. Sebastian and Isabella had paid dearly for their betrayal, their lives permanently altered by my calculated response to their cruel actions. Yet, standing there, watching the city wake up, I felt neither triumph nor joy. Instead, I felt something else stirring. Not regret exactly, but a readiness to close this chapter. They would live with the consequences of their choices, as I would live with mine. So, Claire asked softly, what now? I smiled, a real smile this time, not the cold one I'd perfected over the past year. Now, I think it's time to write a new story, one that's not about them at all. The sweet victory I'd imagined had turned out to be something different, not hollow exactly, but transformative in ways I hadn't anticipated. I had won, completely and utterly, but the triumph had changed me just as much as the original betrayal. It was time to discover who I could be when revenge wasn't my driving force. After all, the best revenge might just be living well, without them occupying any space in my thoughts at all. 2 months after my final reflection on the balcony, I found myself sitting across from David Anderson, a venture capitalist who'd been following my strategic dismantling of Sebastian and Isabella's empire with professional interest. Your execution was flawless, he remarked, sliding a proposal across the polished conference table. That kind of precision, that attention to detail, imagine what you could do if you focused it on building something instead of destruction. The opportunity he presented was ironic, a chance to revitalize struggling businesses, to transform them rather than destroy them. My experience in corporate law, combined with what he called my exceptional understanding of human nature, made me uniquely qualified for the role. I accepted the position the same day I donated Isabella's remaining designer clothes to a women's shelter. The symmetry felt right, discarding the last vestiges of revenge while embracing a new direction. Claire noticed the change immediately. "There's light in your eyes again," she observed over brunch at a new cafe, far from any of the old haunts. "You're not just existing anymore, you're living." My first project involved salvaging a family-owned real estate firm on the brink of collapse. The irony of helping rather than destroying a real estate business wasn't lost on me, but the satisfaction of watching something flourish under my guidance proved unexpectedly addictive. News of Sebastian and Isabella occasionally reached me through the grapevine. He'd found some measure of redemption in his pro bono work, helping people navigate the legal system he'd once exploited. Isabella had gradually adapted to her humbler life in Dubai, teaching English to business people, a far cry from her real estate empire but perhaps a better use of her networking skills. I sold the penthouse 6 months after my conversation with David. The memories it held, both of my marriage and my revenge, belonged to a different chapter. My new apartment, overlooking a quiet park rather than the bustling financial district, reflected the peace I'd finally found. Romance returned to my life unexpectedly. Alexander, a widowed professor I met at a charity event, approached relationships with the same thoughtful consideration I'd developed. Our connection grew slowly, built on honest conversations and shared experiences rather than social appearances. "You're different from anyone I've ever met," he told me one evening as we walked through the park below my new home. "There's a depth to you, like you've been through fire and emerged stronger." He wasn't wrong. The flames of betrayal and revenge had forged something new in me, not the cold, calculating destroyer I'd become during my vendetta, but someone who understood both the price and the value of transformation. My professional success grew as I helped more businesses recover and thrive. The skills I'd honed destroying Sebastian and Isabella's world proved invaluable in identifying weaknesses and opportunities in struggling companies. Each success felt like another step further from the woman who'd stood humiliated at her birthday party. A year and a half after my birthday party revelation, I received 2 letters. The first, from Sebastian, was a formal apology, accompanied by documents showing he'd established a foundation to help victims of financial fraud. The second, from Isabella, contained a simple message: "You won, but maybe we all needed to lose to find our way." I filed both letters away without response. Their words, their lives, their choices, none of it mattered anymore. My story had evolved beyond the boundaries of their betrayal. Claire joined me for dinner, on the anniversary of that fateful birthday party. "Would you do it all again?" she asked, watching me closely. I considered the question carefully. "The revenge served its purpose," I replied. "It taught them consequences, yes, but it taught me something more valuable, my own strength. Now, I choose to use that strength differently." My latest venture capital project involved creating opportunities for women rebuilding their lives after personal setbacks. The inspiration, though rooted in my own experience, had blossomed into something larger than revenge or redemption. "You've become quite the force," Alexander observed one evening as I shared my plans for the foundation, rising from the ashes of betrayal to create something beautiful. Looking out over the park, watching families and couples enjoy the simple pleasure of a summer evening, I felt the last traces of bitterness fade away. Sebastian and Isabella's betrayal had sparked a transformation they never intended, not just the calculated destroyer who'd orchestrated their downfall, but this final evolution into someone who could build, nurture, and grow. The woman who'd promised "you'll regret this" at her birthday party had kept her word. But the woman who emerged from that promise had discovered something far more valuable than revenge. She'd found her true power, not in destruction, but in creation. The phoenix had indeed risen, but she soared now toward horizons her betrayers could never have imagined, leaving the ashes of the past where they belonged, behind her.